Hi, it's Rachel. In this video, we will be reviewing when to use a group versus a subgroup. We will look at what groups offer that subgroups do not have, what subgroups inherit from groups, what benefits to reporting and user management subgroups offer, and examples of when to use a group or a subgroup. Our review will start by looking at groups. Groups should be used when there is no overlap and separation is needed for reporting, workflows, documents, and overall access. Groups also have a key ability to use a different logo and branding. This will help if you need to work with separate business entities that are different from one another. Let's look at an example. My Company Inc. needs groups for internal and external workflows and transactions. My company's internal and external users need to see different logos and branding. Also, they want to be able to separate internal and customer transactions and reporting. All of these factors make the best choice to create two groups, one for internal users and another for external customers. My Company Inc. is used for internal purposes while My Company Customers is used for external purposes. They could make My Company Customers a subgroup of My Company Inc., but there would be a lack of overlapping usage. Customer workflows and reporting would then be included in other internal reporting, and the logo would have to be the same for the parent group. These are all the reasons why making My Company Customers a subgroup of My Company Inc. would not work. Next, we will review subgroups. Subgroups are helpful for organizing users, departments, businesses, and/or sales units that are in the same organization but want reporting separation. Subgroups should be used when you want to share common resources across a group while still separating transaction reports visibility. Items that can be shared from groups to subgroups include document templates, content sets, email templates, brands, workflows, and web forms. It is worth noting that subgroups can create their own workflows and web forms, but all other items need to be created by the parent group as they will not have access to them. It is important to know who can access subgroups. This depends on if the setting Enable User Permissions to Automatically Cascade to Subgroups is enabled. If this setting is not enabled, users will need explicit permission in order for them to have access to a specific subgroup. If Enable User Permissions to Automatically Cascade to Subgroups is enabled, users that are created within the primary group will automatically get those same permissions to any subgroups, meaning that any user in the primary group will have the same level of permissions and access to any subgroups under the primary group. For example, with cascading permissions enabled, if a user has permission to view transactions, documents, and reports in the primary group, they will have the same permissions and access in the subgroup. Subgroups inherit certain items from their parent group. Subgroups will automatically inherit the logo from the parent group. They will also inherit any multi-factor authentication settings, such as enabling a custom multi-factor authentication email. In addition to multi-factor authentication, email services are inherited as well. However, there are certain items that the subgroup will inherit only if it is not defined in the subgroup. These items include owner email address, session expiration, user password change, lockout system-wide administrators, privacy policy, and user experience. Reporting, as mentioned before, can be helpful with subgroups as you can separate the transactions from each group. The report on the screen shows transactions, which then links to the subgroup the transaction was created in. This can especially be seen in the Trends report. This report shows transactions broken down by each group over time. Let's look at an example of when to use a subgroup with Enable User Permissions to Automatically Cascade to Subgroups is enabled. A simple example would be a sales department. You are a sales manager, you create some workflows that you want all your sales agents to launch, but you don't want all the sales agents to have views into each other's sales documents and reports. So you create a subgroup for each sales agent while the manager has full visibility over all of them by existing in the parent group. Our second example will go back to the group My Company Inc. This group is for internal usage. The company needs to create groups for marketing, accounting, and HR while allowing management to have access and insight into each group. These departments have some overlap, such as a logo, branding, email templates, content sets, and more that they would use across each department. They will also have some items that they will keep separately, such as particular workflows and web forms. They do not want employees from each department to have access to each other's department's transactions and work. These factors allow us to determine that each department should have their own subgroup under the My Company Inc. group. Subgroups allow for users to be grouped, and access can be separated for each group to not see or have access to each other's transactions, workflows, and web forms. Users in the parent group, My Company Inc., can enable or give explicit permission to users so they would be able to see reporting from each group. As we mentioned before, subgroups allow reporting to be broken down by each group. Users in the parent group should also be able to update any branding, workflows, web forms, and more for the subgroups without having to update each group individually. For example, if they have some internal changes to branding or logos, the parent group can easily update that for all of the subgroups. That's our review on groups versus subgroups. Thank you for watching.